Hey, welcome back everyone. Rob here from Ram Studio Comics. So in today's video, I'm going to work through a pose with you. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm just using regular sketch pad paper, nothing special, and 2H lead, I believe. It could be HB. Actually, I think it's HB on this one because I went to sharpen it and it broke pretty easy. So that's usually a sign of HB lead. And it's a little darker, obviously. Softer, darker. So what I was thinking for this one is that I wanted a character, we'll say like a Batman or somebody, up on a ledge. Here, I'll show you. So I'm just basically going to sketch out an overall pose. I'm going to have the head orientation a little bit different than the upper torso. Try to draw as much of this in with broken lines. And actually what I should be doing first, even though this is just a sketch, this won't be the in drawing. I like to sketch a lot of my concepts out first, a little bit more loose on some sketch pad paper, and just kind of get the ideas going. Just want a sense of perspective like that. You could do, the 3-point, get some lines going the other way as well. People always ask me, where do you put these lines? And I wish I could give you some really good advice on that, other than you have to look for distortions as you do it. Actually, I placed that one really poorly, but again, these are just basic guides. This isn't true perspective, right? I'm just throwing these in to give me a sense of depth on the page for my sketch. Now, there is a kind of a rule or an idea that you can follow. I'll show you here in a second after I get a couple of these in place. But again, this is just reference for me to feel like this is occupying some three-dimensional space, and then I generally can do better with placing the figure. But quick idea for 3-point perspective. I'm going to just draw it up to the side here. So if you take your picture plane, right, your panel of your scene, if you put your points outside of that, you're generally going to get little or no distortion. Okay, so just try that out, and you're going to draw your, these are your vanishing points. You're going to draw your grid pad and go into each one of those, right? And generally, if you do that, you're going to end up with little to no distortion in this little box area, your picture plane, your panel, whatever you want to call it. So just keep that in mind. I didn't do that here. This is just to kind of get going. Okay, so now I've got a sense of perspective in the body, even though it will contort and veer away from this overall grid, it still gives me an idea of what to look for. Okay, let me see if I can pan back a little more. Oh, that's about it on this one. Okay, so I gotta adjust my setup so I can get more of a long shot back so you can see everything better. Okay, so I'm going to place the shoulders about here, and I want one leg up. So this is the part I really want to kind of stop and think about. So essentially, when I go to put the body is aligned with, we'll say, these guides, right? So this shoulder could be higher, whatever. But again, he could be tilted to one side. It really doesn't matter. The main thing is I want this feeling that we're looking up at the character. But as we get down to the torso, the lower torso, the pelvis, generally that tilts, right? So it does two things. One of which, it tilts away from the upper body, more like that. Maybe not that significant, but it does that. It's not the same orientation there. We know that. And then also, if I bring this leg up, well, then this line has to come down a bit, right? Something like that. And then this attachment point for the leg. So again, here's one of the tricky areas of the body where I'm saying we're looking up at the scene, right, perspective-wise, which would make you think, well, we're looking up at the leg here. And we probably are a bit, but maybe not as dramatic as we might think. So it's really tricky. Or you might make the mistake, and I don't know, we'll try both ways and see which way looks better. We might make the mistake of saying, no, this is tilted away from our view. We're now looking down at that leg and that connection point. So you're going to see the leg more like this. remember that this portion of the leg is, I'm off camera, is basically the collarbone to the lower pelvis, hip to the knee is, kind of how I look at it, pinpoint it. So we're gonna extend it back like that, but we also have to imagine that this part of the body is wider than up here because, again, perspective. So we have to kind of think about that as well. Not kind of, we do need to think about that. And then we're going to bring this leg up and over. Something like this. Yes, and I feel like this curve needs to go up more. So, remember what I said, we were going to try it both ways. And you got a picture, if the leg wasn't here, you'd be seeing the bottom plane change or slice or whatever you want to call it of that opening of the leg. So without that bottom curve here, we just see that top curve. Okay, we'll bring this up. We'll see a lot of the lat from an angle like this. And then need to figure out the arm position. So pretty static at this point. Well, overall it's a static pose anyways. He's just kind of standing there looking down at the city is what I was thinking. But we got to do something interesting with the arms. So, so for instance, boring and typical, and which is what I fall into doing if I don't really think about it, would be something like this. Hands just kind of flex outwards, like boring, typical, and yeah. So at any rate, the reason I'm saying that is because I do default to things if I'm just kind of in the mode of drawing. Sometimes I get something cool, but I might just go to something I've drawn way too many times. So, what can we do that's better than that? Like, we could have one arm kind of down by the side. Maybe over this way. Let's try that. And then the other one could be up and doing this, but still, even that's pretty boring, right? What would be another good way to do this? Let's bring the bicep out. We'll bring the forearm out more this way. We use this little swirly thing to get the feeling of the arm coming out. And I mean, it's Batman, so he could be holding one of his gadgets. Makes sense. So we could try something like that. Bring this leg down. Not sure how I'd want to place the belt yet, but we'll keep working on that. Okay, so let's get back up here. And okay, so let's soft erase this upper body now and clean this up a bit. I think that overall should be interesting enough. I mean, it's still kind of boring, but maybe we can play around with it a little bit as we refine it. I'm thinking maybe tuck the head a little bit more. I really like trying to push the differences when I can from the head, upper torso, pelvis orientation. If they're a little too aligned, it just kind of loses some potential feeling of drama. So let me see if we can fix that up a little better. Okay, so let's get in here and Add a little bit more detail to the anatomy. So if you notice, I'm actually going for a little bit more of the silhouette. I'm doing some of the interior shapes as well, but I'm really paying special attention to the silhouette as I do that, because if the silhouette doesn't work, usually that's a good sign that you have to make some edits. Nothing worse than working too much on the interior forms, and then all of a sudden you get to a part of the silhouette and you're like, oh, this totally doesn't work, and I got to redraw it anyways. I don't know. It's just trying to make a good use of your time, basically. So usually you can spot some errors in the silhouette, especially for a character like Batman. He's very silhouette intense, I guess. I always say that's why he's such a good character, because he's got a great silhouette. So I want to play around with the head of the character. I could try to tuck the chin back this way a little more. We don't want to go so far where we look like we're hyperextending his neck or whatever, but I don't think this is too far at all. That's very doable. And even though his head's down, I feel like the head shape would still block the spikes in the head. I could be wrong there, so I'm just kind of playing around with these shapes and seeing what I see. And so just figuring out some of the plane changes. This would be about here. Yeah, I think overall that's more interesting than what we had before. And again, it's just making that difference of, the head, torso, pelvis, all of them need to be at a little bit different orientation to work as well. Okay, center line here should twist and come away. And this is another area too. If you can get the twists of this area of the body to be different, again, from the lower section of the torso to the upper section, the more you can get that twist evident in there, generally the more expressive and better the characters will look. But I'll be honest, not the easiest thing for me to get. I think I've aligned it a little too much. There needs to be a distinction where it comes down to here and then all of a sudden it slopes down, because again, we need that feeling that the lower torso, pelvis, is basically at a different orientation. And so far, these stomach muscles do not help. So I gotta play around with that, try to get that right. Alright, I'll come back to that area. Okay, let's work on this leg. Widen out the neck a little bit. I feel like this side could taper in a bit more. And even that bottom leg feels a bit thick. But again, part of what I was thinking about there, and I know what led me to do that, is that I'm thinking about the perspective. So I feel like, pretty much we have a straight on shot of the character. There's some upturns to things like the chest, and and you can keep reinforcing that. So you got to figure that if you were looking at something oriented in space where he is, you could basically figure it out by drawing a square through there and then a circle, and look at the curvature of the circle inside of that square. So I'll do it up here just to show you what I mean, but it would really need to be where he's at. But if you were to draw, based upon your perspective, a cube, or just do a square plane like that, and then you can do a circle or closer to a perfect circle by crisscrossing corners, all this fun stuff. You can keep going until you basically find these little marks. If you want it to be closer to a circle in that perspective. But what I mean is find that, right? Do that circle in that perspective. And again, this perspective isn't accurate. I was just throwing it in there. But see, and then pay attention to the curvature right there. Well, then think about that in terms of the body. So you have these curves of the muscles. So if this is a relatively downward curve at this part of the body, seeing that there's an upward curve in that representation is going to tell you, okay, this needs to go up more. This could go up even higher, because this is a pretty upward curve, even straight on, right? So it's going to be very upward. So again, it's just kind of paying attention to that so that you start drawing things like that. Now with the belt, I started to draw a downward curve, and almost immediately it felt wrong, and it probably is wrong. It's going to contradict the feeling that we're looking up at this character. So it needs to be straight, or even a slight upward bend. So I have to play around with that. It's probably a little bit of an upward bend, but yeah, I don't know what it is. I always have to redraw his belt a couple times, but I feel like right now it's not an issue of the belt, it's the width of the midsection. It's almost like Batman's put on too much weight, so I need to play around with this and give him that thin waist. Yeah, I always find this area to be the trickiest to get right. And then from here, I'm going to bring that leg thinner as it connects. So I think about the quadriceps first, this area. I think a adductor group, if I'm not mistaken. And then just kind of attach them all like that. Okay. I still feel like this area's got to be much thinner. Or not much thinner. It's usually subtle increments, because I notice if I go too far, I blast right past what looks right, and then I go into something else. Yeah, I feel like it's something like that. Maybe even a little more to the lat, because we're looking right up under the character, but that's just, I don't know. It almost looks like the lats are too big. So something like that. And again, if you can figure out this twist, I can't seem to get it the way I want here, but maybe just at an angle, it's better than nothing. But it's not like he's really twisting a whole lot based on the way I have him. I really could have pushed that further. So in another iteration, as I go to drawing this on Bristol board, then I could, really fix that. And I think what I'm going to do, maybe, is I might take this into digital, clean it up a bit more, and then print that on Bristol board. But I just wanted to share part of my sketching process with you today. So that's all I'm really going to show you here. I would probably draw this foot on a ledge, or I would just cover it with some smoke or something. I mean, there's times when you really do want to just kind of hint to areas like this, and then use the effects to make it look pretty cool. So I'd probably do a cheat right there. And I don't know if I'd keep the hand pose just like this. I'm just kind of throwing out ideas at this point. But again, I think it's good to work through some of this in your sketchbook and then take it to the Bristol board, since the ideas have kind of been fleshed out a bit more. I don't know. I tend to find that they work out the best. It's funny because even if I'm not aware that I'm doing that, because I don't think at first I was really aware that I did that. I thought, well, I just kind of draw. I'd look at my art and I go, yeah, I remember I drew that. I drew that, using this set of tools, right? And then as I would kind of go through all my old sketch pads, I realized, oh no, that actually started as a rough sketch on the back of this page. And I started connecting the dots, and I'm like, that happens a lot for me, actually. So then I just started making that a more deliberate part of my process. So that'll bring this one to a close. I hope you've enjoyed today's content. It's given you some ideas of how to work through your poses. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe for new content each week. And thank you for watching. As always, keep drawing, keep having fun, and bye for now.